Okay, let's talk about octaves. So octaves would be the same note, higher or lower, right? So if we took a C note here at the 3rd fret of the A string, the octave of this would be at the 5th fret of the G string. So you can hear how that, right? Same note. This one's lower, this one's higher, the next one. All right, so now there's a system of how to go about finding these on the fretboard. And then they will create octave shapes. So if we do all the E's on the neck, on the fretboard here. So what we do is we start out with the furthest E back we could possibly do, and that would be our high, open high E, right? So the rule I've made up is whenever the note is on the high E string, you go to the low E string, because it's the same note. Right? And then when the note's on the low E string, we're going to skip a string and then go up 2 frets. So essentially from the E string, I skipped the A string, went to the D string, and then I went up 2 frets. I also try to get my students to make sure that they kind of imagine this as an imaginary fret back here, as your open strings, right? So we were at high E to low E, and then from the low E we skip a string and go up 2 frets. So now we're at the 2nd fret of the D string. Now if you were to take these 3 E's, the high E, the low E, and the 2nd fret of the D string, and you plugged in your E major chord, there's your E roots shape, right? So from the D string, we skip a string. Whenever the note's on the D string, we skip a string and go up 3 frets. So I skip to the B string, and I go up 3 frets, and that would be E. So 2nd fret of the D string and the 5th fret of the B string are E's. That's also a very important thing, that you say the note, the fret numbers out loud as you learn this stuff too. So I'm always having students, when I ask a student where's a specific note on the fretboard, a lot of times they get to that note and they say right here. And I'm always like, what do you mean right here? Be very specific with where you're at. So in this case, E is at the 2nd fret of the D string. E is at the 5th fret of the B string. And with time, you say those enough, you start remembering where the notes are on the fretboard. This octave shape, if we move this back, well, guess what? These are D's. So here's your D chord. Now normally you form it like this, but if you do it like this, there's your 2 D's, your 2 roots. So why am I doing it like this? Because this chord becomes movable, right? And as the D's move up, D, D sharp, or sorry, yes, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, etc. Just as the E's, the first one we did here, this E chord, this is how an E chord gets moved up, right? Because here's your E chord. If we move it up a half step, well, the 3 strings that are open here, when you play the E in open position, are the low E, the B string, and the high E. So if I move this chord up a half step, you have to bar across the 1st fret because those 3 strings need to be captured. But the roots here, these 3 roots here, have not changed, right? So it's F, F, F. So this keeps getting moved up, this octave shape, as does whatever bar chord you're plugging into that, right? So we had the D, we had the E shape, then we had the D shape. Now I put my first finger here, the 5th fret of the B string, and the rule for when you're on the B string is go to the A string of the same fret and go up 2 frets. Well, that would be the 5th fret of the B string and the 7th fret of the A string. And again, if we take this back all the way down, well, guess where we're at? C chord right here. So when you play a basic C chord, we have 2 C's in that, here and here, and that's what keeps getting moved up. So if I get to the 15th fret of the A string, I'm back, and the 13th of the B, I'm back to the C here. So this is what gets moved up, become a C chord. So if I move this up to my pinky up to the 7th fret of the A string, I have a C-shaped E chord. I've moved the C chord up. You have 2 open strings in this chord, the G string and the high E string. So when you move this up a half step, those 2 have got to be barred. So I usually place my finger on the A string for comfort. But my root is the A string, right? So if I move, again, if I move this up to the 7th fret, I have what is an E chord using the C chord. All right, then I put my first finger here on the 7th fret of the A string. And then the rule for the A string is skip a string and go up 2 frets. So now I have the 7th fret of the A string and the 9th fret of the G string are my 2 E's. And if we move this all the way down, this is A. This is your A chord. So when you play an A chord, you have the open A and then the 2nd fret of the G string. So that's your octave shape for that, right? So as I move this A up, you might want to try with one finger to capture the 3, like that. But there's those 2 octaves. Then I put my first finger here on the 9th fret of the G string. The rule on the G string is skip a string and go up 3 frets. All right, and if you remember the high E, you go to the low E. So these 3 roots is what would be if we took this all the way down. Well, G chord, right? Normally you play it like this probably, but it doesn't matter. You still have the G here. You have the open G and the high E. So again, that looks like this, right? And this is what gets moved up. So if I move it up another half step, and then I do this, I have an A chord. I've used the G chord. It'd be no different if you placed a capo right here and just formed a G chord, right? You're just becoming the capo by your index finger laying across. And then you're back home to what you did here in the beginning. You have high E, low E, and then the 2nd fret, or sorry, the 14th fret of the D string. So real quickly, just go through them again. High E, go to low E, skip a string up 2, D string, skip a string up 3, B string, go to the A string and then go up 2 frets, A string, skip a string up 2, G string, skip a string up 3, and then you're starting the process over. So there's all my E's. In a very organized system, instead of going up each string and finding them, when you place them in the octave shapes, they're going to have more meaning for you as you learn your cage system and plug in the bar chords. So again, I'll do this again just with the octave shapes now. So this is my E chord, and I can move that chord up. The next one was my D, my D shape. I move that up. And then we have our C shape. There's my C chord for E. The next one is the A shape. There's an A for E. The next one is the G shape. This is a challenging one here. And here's my G chord for E. And then the last one, you'd be back home, I guess, or the first one again. But you gotta bar it now. So you wanna do these in other keys. This was just I'll do one more with you. So if we did in the key of C, well, the furthest note back you could do would be C, would be at the B string of the 1st fret. And then if we maintain the same rules, you go to the A string and go up 2 frets. Well, that just gives you your 2 octaves for the C chord. And then we're on to the A string with the C, skip string up 2. That's the A shape. And the G string, skip a string up 3 to the high E, and then the low E. That's the G shape. High E, low E, and then go up to the D string of the 10th fret. That's your E shape. 10th fret of the D string, skip a string up 3. 13th fret of the B, and got your D shaped chord, and then you're back home. See, so the chords real quick would be C using the C chord, C using the A chord, C using the G chord, C using the E chord, C using the D chord, and then I'm back home to C up here. So I have a C chord wherever I need on the neck. And then I can also break those chords up in the triads, but we'll save that for another lesson.